So in the last two blog posts on the B2B series on Adobe launch, I covered all about events and conditions. As we saw, events are nothing but a way of telling Adobe launch that a particular user action has been recorded. The action can be anything like a loading of a page, loading of a file, a mouse or keyboard click, etc. We saw the different event types that are available, and as I said, each event is dependent on the extension that you select in while configuring a rule. While events are listening for user interactions, conditions basically are constraints that get further applied to restrict when Adobe launch can or cannot trigger a rule. So we saw different conditions that are available, and we saw how to use it in the previous blog post. Now this blog post is going to be very easy. We're just going to configure a rule that will look for an event, which is nothing else but a data layer push. We don't want to configure a condition, but we can if we want to. And then we set up an actions. So actions basically is the last part of the rule, where launch will check for the events first. It will look for the conditions. If it sees that both the components are getting matched, then it will go and trigger the action that is expected. So as you see on the screen right now, we are configuring one event, we're configuring no conditions, and then we're going to configure one action which says set the Adobe Analytics variables. And then once you have set the variables, you go and fire a trigger, and then we can see how the values are getting passed into Adobe Analytics. But before I go ahead with the launch, let's look at our screen. Let's look at our code on the website. As I said, we are going to use the event-driven data layer. This is a very good way of maintaining the data dictionary in your website. So here we see we are declaring a data layer object, and then once we have declared a data layer object, we are pushing an event called page loaded, and then we're passing the other values. Now this event called page loaded is what we will be using it as our event trigger. So if you open up the events, you will see you have this extension that I've configured called data layer manager. What I am doing is I am selecting the data layer manager extension. If you would like to see how the data layer manager extension looks like, you can go to the catalog and just add your data layer manager extension. What it basically requires is a data layer object name. The data layer object name is what your developer will declare it on the website. So moving on, I go to the rules. I open up the data layer manager. I open up the events window. I select data layer manager. I then look at the next event type, which is data layer push. I give the event type name, which is corresponding to the event type, that is event name that is selected in the code. I don't want to give a condition, but as I said, I can give a condition. I want this rule to trigger only on the index.html page, or I would like it to not trigger on shopping cart pages, but I don't want to give any conditions right now. I'll go to the actions part. I select the Adobe Analytics extension. The first action type is setting a variable. So you just click on setting variables. Then once you click on set variables, you get an option to pass the data elements. So first data element is the page name. So I'll configure it to pass it into evar1. Then we have evar2, which is page URL. So all you have to do is have to just select the evar1 page name, set as, and then once you click on that data icon, you will get an option to select the data elements that are configured in your launch property. So I select that. I can remove one of these. Then page URL path name, so on and so forth. Okay, the next action is whether I want to send it as a page view or whether I want to send it as a link view. I would like to send it as a page view because the user is viewing a page. That's all there is to configure about this rule. Now we will save to library. We build the library. Okay. While the library is building, I'll just go and clear my console. I remove the logs. Okay. There you go. The library is built. Now head over to your web page. Ensure that everything else is cleared. Do a hard reload. So there are different ways of debugging a web analytics call. I will not be talking about the debugging sessions here. I will be putting it in a separate video. But right now, the best way to see whether your data layer has triggered or not is just to cite data layer. Just mind that it is the data layer object name that you have configured in your website. So once you click on data layer, you'll be able to see the exact data layer that has been passed in your web code. Now, what is the data layer computed state? It will basically talk about what value has been passed at the time of the event getting pushed. So if you see, it is basically the same. It will tell you what is the page info, page title, page URL, site domain. Now head over to the network tab. You have to just filter it by B/SS. That's how you will analyze a web analytics call to Adobe. Now click on the request that has been made and click on payload. Once you click on payload, you will be able to see all the values that are getting passed into the Adobe Analytics beacon. So with this, we have done an action. We have configured an action in our global page load rule. And that's all for this video. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day. Bye.